Did you know that Australia just recorded its hottest year ever, with wildfires burning over 17 million hectares, an area bigger than England? Or that 1 in 3 Australians now say they're struggling to afford basic necessities? What's happening to the lucky country? From climate disasters to rising costs, deep political cracks to growing public unrest, Australia is hitting a boiling point and fast. But is this just a rough patch, or a sign of something bigger? In this video, we'll uncover 10 shocking reasons why Australia may be nearing a national breaking point, and what the future could look like. Number 1. Escalating climate crises. Australia is no stranger to extreme weather. But what we're seeing now is beyond normal. In recent years, the country has been hit by record-shattering heat waves, catastrophic bushfires, and once-in-a-century floods, happening almost every year. In 2023 alone, parts of Western Australia saw temperatures soar past 50 degrees, 122 degrees. Scientists are calling it a sign of a climate system in chaos. A joint report by the CSIRO and the Bureau of Meteorology revealed that Australia is warming at twice the global average. That's not just a scary number, it's a dangerous reality. Crops are failing, homes are burning, insurance premiums are skyrocketing, and rural communities are being forced to relocate. And it's not just the environment that's suffering. Public health is taking a major hit too. More Australians are ending up in hospitals due to heat stress, respiratory problems, and trauma from climate-related disasters. Cities like Sydney and Melbourne now face rising climate anxiety, especially among the youth. But here's the real kicker. Many of these impacts are already locked in, even if the world drastically cuts emissions today. That means Australia must adapt fast, rethinking how it builds, farms, and protects its people. So ask yourself, what happens to a country when its seasons turn against it? The climate crisis is no longer a future threat. It's here, it's fierce, and it's pushing Australia closer to its breaking point. Number 2. Housing affordability collapse. Once a symbol of the Aussie dream, owning a home in Australia has become nearly impossible for millions. The housing market has spiralled out of control, with prices in cities like Sydney and Melbourne reaching absurd highs. In 2024, the median house price in Sydney topped $1.6 million. That's more than 13 times the average annual income. What's fueling this crisis? A mix of low housing supply, foreign investment, and speculative buying has created a perfect storm. Add to that high interest rates and rental shortages, and you've got a situation where even renting feels out of reach. In fact, over 1/3 of Australians now spend more than 30% of their income on housing, officially classified as housing stress. And it's not just young people who are struggling. Families, single parents, and even full-time workers are being pushed to the edge. Some are forced to live in their cars, others move back in with parents, while more and more people are stuck in a cycle of lifelong renting. The dream of owning a home has turned into a nightmare of debt, instability, and rising anxiety. Experts warn that if current trends continue, Australia could face a full-blown housing bubble collapse, with devastating effects on the economy. The big question is, how long can this go on before the system snaps? With more Australians priced out by the day, the housing affordability crisis is quickly becoming one of the most urgent and explosive issues the nation must confront. Number 3. Cost of living crisis. Every trip to the grocery store, every power bill, every tank of fuel, it's all adding up. And for many Australians, it's becoming too much to bear. The cost of living crisis has tightened its grip on everyday life, turning even basic expenses into major stress points. In just the last 2 years, prices for essential items have surged. Groceries are up by over 9%. Electricity bills have jumped more than 20%. And rents in some cities have risen by over 30%. What's driving this? A cocktail of global supply chain issues, domestic labour shortages, extreme weather impacts, and inflation, all hitting at once. The result? Millions of Australians are now cutting back on food, skipping medical appointments, and cancelling family plans just to make ends meet. According to a 2024 report by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, 1 in 4 households reported financial stress severe enough to delay paying bills or buying food. And it's not just low-income families. Middle-class Australians, once considered financially stable, are now feeling the squeeze. People with decent jobs are suddenly one emergency away from financial collapse. What's worse is the emotional toll. Rising costs have sparked a spike in mental health issues, family tension, and social division. When the basics become luxuries, a society begins to fray. So, what happens when a nation can no longer afford to live in its own backyard? The cost of living crisis isn't just an economic issue, it's a national pressure point squeezing the heart of Australian life. Number 4. Healthcare system overload. Australia's healthcare system was once ranked among the best in the world, but now it's struggling to keep up. Long emergency room wait times, overworked staff, and a growing backlog of untreated patients have turned a once reliable system into one on the verge of collapse. In rural and remote areas, the situation is even worse. Some towns have no full-time doctors, and patients must drive hours, or even fly, to access basic services. Meanwhile, in major cities, hospital beds are full, and people are waiting months, sometimes years, for elective surgeries or specialist appointments. A big part of the problem? Underfunding and staff shortages. Burnout from the pandemic hasn't gone away. It's gotten worse. Nurses and doctors are leaving the profession in record numbers, and recruitment can't keep up. The mental health sector is especially overwhelmed, with services stretched so thin that many are turning people away entirely. Recent surveys show that 2/3 of Australians believe the healthcare system is getting worse, not better. And they're right to worry. An overloaded system doesn't just mean longer wait times. It means more preventable deaths, higher stress for families, and a public losing faith in one of its most trusted institutions. So here's the question. What happens when people can't get the help they need? When health becomes a privilege instead of a right, the very fabric of society begins to unravel. Australia's healthcare crisis is not a distant threat. It's a clear warning that the system is cracking under the pressure. Number 5. Indigenous inequality and tensions. Beneath the surface of modern Australia lies a deep, unresolved wound: the treatment of Indigenous peoples. Despite being the oldest continuous culture on Earth, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities still face systemic disadvantage in nearly every area of life. From life expectancy to education, employment and healthcare, the gaps are wide and stubborn. Indigenous Australians are more likely to die young, more likely to be incarcerated, and less likely to finish school or find stable work. And while governments have pledged to close the gap, progress remains painfully slow. The 2023 Voice to Parliament referendum, meant to give Indigenous people a formal say in policies affecting their lives, was rejected, exposing a stark cultural divide. Many saw it as a chance for healing. Others viewed it as a political tool. The result? Tensions have only deepened, with growing calls for justice, recognition, and real change. This isn't just a political issue, it's a question of national identity. How can Australia truly move forward while leaving behind its First Peoples? Failing to address Indigenous inequality isn't just morally wrong, it's socially and economically damaging. Studies show that empowering Indigenous communities leads to stronger, more resilient societies overall. So ask yourself, can a nation thrive if its foundation is cracked? Until Australia reckons honestly with its past and commits to a more inclusive future, these tensions will remain a powerful force pulling it toward the edge. If this video opened your eyes, let us know. Which issue hit you hardest? Drop a comment below. We pour our heart into every video, So, if you found this valuable, subscribe now. It's just one click, but it means the world to us. Number 6. Political paralysis and public distrust. Australia's political landscape is growing more fractured by the day, and people are losing faith fast. While major parties continue their tug of war over power, many citizens feel ignored, disillusioned, and disconnected from the decisions that shape their lives. Public trust in government is at an all-time low. A recent poll revealed that fewer than 30% of Australians believe their leaders are acting in the nation's best interest. Scandals, policy flip-flops, and shallow campaign promises have turned Parliament House into a symbol of dysfunction rather than leadership. What's worse, political gridlock is stalling real progress. Urgent issues like climate action, Indigenous rights, housing reform, and healthcare are kicked down the road. Debated endlessly, but rarely resolved. Meanwhile, independent candidates and fringe parties are gaining traction, reflecting a growing hunger for new voices and bold ideas. Social media has added fuel to the fire. Online platforms have become battlegrounds of misinformation, polarizing opinions and deepening cultural divides. From the COVID response to the Voice referendum, the public is increasingly split, and trust in institutions is being torn apart. This kind of political paralysis isn't just frustrating, it's dangerous. Without decisive leadership and public confidence, a country loses its ability to act, to unite, to move forward. So here's the question. Can democracy survive if people stop believing in it? Australia's political system is at a tipping point, and if it can't earn back the trust of its people, the consequences could be far more than just electoral. Number 7. Water scarcity and environmental collapse. Australia is the driest inhabited continent on Earth, and it's getting drier. Water, once taken for granted, is now becoming one of the country's most critical threats. Rivers are shrinking, dams are drying up, and ecosystems are collapsing under the weight of human demand and climate extremes. The Murray-Darling Basin, Australia's largest river system, is in crisis. Overused for agriculture and industry, it's now suffering from toxic algae blooms, fish die-offs, and water theft scandals. Entire towns have faced zero water availability, relying on truck deliveries just to survive. It's not just rural areas feeling the pressure. Urban centres are under strain too, with growing populations competing for limited supplies. Add in prolonged droughts and extreme heat, and Australia's water future looks increasingly uncertain. And then there's the environmental toll. Iconic ecosystems like the Great Barrier Reef, the wetlands, and native forests are under siege. Mass coral bleaching events, species extinction, and biodiversity loss are accelerating, threatening the natural beauty and balance that define Australia. This isn't just an environmental issue, it's a national security threat. Without reliable water, food production collapses. Without healthy ecosystems, tourism fades and communities suffer. Every drop matters, and mismanagement today could lead to conflict tomorrow. So ask yourself, what happens when a country runs dry? Water scarcity and environmental degradation are no longer distant warnings. They are urgent alarms. If Australia doesn't act now, the land itself may start to turn against its people. Number 8. Population growth versus failing infrastructure. Australia's population is booming, but its infrastructure is failing to keep up. In just the past decade, millions of new residents have moved into cities like Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane, putting immense pressure on roads, public transport, schools, and healthcare systems. At first glance, growth might seem like a good thing. More people mean more energy, more diversity, more innovation. But without proper planning, population growth can quickly spiral into urban chaos. Commute times are skyrocketing, classrooms are overcrowded, and hospitals are buckling under demand. In many suburbs, it feels like the city has outgrown itself. A 2024 report from Infrastructure Australia warned that the country faces a $40 billion infrastructure gap over the next decade. That means more congestion, more delays, and more frustration. Water systems, electricity grids, and telecommunications are all being stretched thin, and the cracks are already starting to show. What's worse is that infrastructure projects often get bogged down in red tape, political bickering, or budget blowouts. So even when solutions are proposed, they're often too little, too late. This imbalance between people and planning is creating a growing divide. New migrants, young families, and working-class communities are often hit the hardest, stuck in areas with poor access to essential services and rising living costs. So here's the tough question. Can a nation grow without falling apart? Without smarter planning and real investment, Australia's population boom could quickly turn from opportunity to overload and push the country closer to breaking point. Number 9. Economic dependence on fossil fuels. Australia is one of the world's top exporters of coal and natural gas, and that's a big part of the problem. While the rest of the world races toward renewable energy, Australia remains heavily reliant on industries that are not only harmful to the environment, but also economically risky. Right now, fossil fuel exports bring in billions of dollars each year. But with countries like China, the EU, and the US moving aggressively toward net zero emissions, global demand is set to decline sharply. If Australia doesn't diversify its economy, it could be left holding assets no one wants. This overdependence creates a dangerous balancing act: short-term profit versus long-term sustainability. Governments are stuck trying to please mining giants while claiming to fight climate change. The result? Mixed signals, weak policies, and missed opportunities to invest in clean industries like solar, wind, and green hydrogen, where Australia could actually lead the world. Meanwhile, communities built around mining are already feeling the pressure. As automation and environmental restrictions rise, job security is shrinking, and without clear transition plans, entire regions could face economic collapse. The deeper issue? Australia's energy future is being shaped by yesterday's thinking. While the world moves forward, Australia risks being left behind, both financially and technologically. So here's the critical question. Can an economy survive when its foundation is crumbling? Without a bold shift towards sustainable industries, Australia's fossil fuel addiction may not just pollute the planet. It could undermine its entire economic future. Number 10. Youth disillusionment and brain drain. A country's future depends on its young people. But in Australia, that future is starting to slip away. Rising numbers of young Australians are feeling disillusioned, overwhelmed, and increasingly tempted to leave the country in search of better opportunities abroad. Why? Because they're facing a perfect storm of challenges: unaffordable housing, insecure jobs, mental health struggles, and a political system that often feels out of touch. Surveys show that more than 40% of Australians aged 18 to 29 don't believe the country is heading in the right direction. That's not just frustration, it's a warning sign. Meanwhile, Australia is experiencing a subtle but significant brain drain. Highly educated young professionals, scientists, engineers, creatives, and tech minds are moving to countries where innovation is funded, housing is within reach, and wages stretch further. The loss isn't just in numbers. It's in potential, creativity, and national growth. Mental health among young Australians is also deteriorating. The pressure to succeed in a system that feels broken is taking a heavy toll, with skyrocketing rates of anxiety, depression, and burnout. And with limited access to affordable support, many suffer in silence. This growing disconnect between young people and the system they're inheriting poses a major threat. If the next generation loses hope in the future, who will carry the country forward? So ask yourself, what happens when the brightest minds turn away? If Australia can't win back the trust and passion of its youth, it may face not just a skills shortage, but a crisis of identity and direction. Australia is at a critical crossroads. The challenges we've explored, climate breakdown, housing chaos, rising costs, political distrust, and a restless youth, aren't isolated. They're interconnected pressure points, all building toward a moment where something must give. But here's the truth. While the signs are alarming, crisis also creates opportunity. Across the country, people are waking up, speaking out, and pushing for bold solutions. Innovators are investing in clean energy. Communities are calling for real reform. And young Australians are demanding a future that works for everyone. The question is no longer if Australia will change, but how and how fast. Will the nation double down on outdated systems, or rise to build something better? The path forward isn't easy, but it is possible. And it starts with awareness, action, and a refusal to accept the status quo. So what happens next? That depends on us all, on the choices we make, the leaders we support, and the conversations we're willing to have. Australia's breaking point could be its greatest turning point, if we're brave enough to face it.